The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and despair, but Michael Chen barely noticed anymore. For the 347th day in a row, he sat in that same uncomfortable plastic chair, holding the hand of a woman who didn't remember his name. His father's words echoed in his mind like a curse he couldn't shake: "You're wasting your future." Michael had looked his father in the eye that day and said something that shattered their relationship but saved his soul: "She is my future." Nobody understood. Not his father, not his colleagues at the law firm, not his friends who'd stopped calling months ago. They all thought he was throwing his life away for someone who would never recover, someone who would never again be the brilliant artist who'd painted sunsets that made grown men weep. But they hadn't seen what Michael had seen in Emma Rodriguez's eyes the day they met at that coffee shop 3 years ago, a light so pure it could guide ships home through the darkest storm. Michael was 28 then, fresh off making junior partner at Henderson & Associates, the most prestigious firm in Boston. His future was a straight line drawn in gold: senior partner by 35, maybe a run for district attorney someday. His father, Richard Chen, had built a real estate empire and expected his only son to build something equally impressive. Love, Richard often said, was something you scheduled between board meetings. Emma was different from anyone Michael had ever met. She lived in a converted warehouse in Southie, teaching art to kids from the projects every Saturday morning. She painted murals on buildings scheduled for demolition, leaving beauty in places meant to disappear. When Michael asked her why she wasted her talent on temporary canvases, she'd smiled and said, "Nothing's really temporary. The kids who see these walls will remember. That's forever." He fell in love with her philosophy before he fell in love with her face. Within 6 months, they were inseparable. His father tolerated Emma at first, the way you tolerate a cold you know will pass. But when Michael started leaving work early to attend her gallery openings, when he began talking about meaning and purpose, Richard's patience evaporated. "She's making you soft," his father warned over dinner at the Harvard Club. "You're on track to make partner. Don't let some starving artist derail your destiny." But Michael wasn't derailed. He was finally on the right track. Emma taught him that success wasn't about corner offices and 6-figure bonuses. It was about the warmth in your chest when you helped someone, the satisfaction of creating something that mattered. Together, they started a nonprofit, bringing art programs to underfunded schools. Michael used his legal skills pro bono, and Emma brought the vision. They were building something beautiful. Then came the accident. A drunk driver ran a red light on Commonwealth Avenue. Emma was walking home from buying supplies for her next class. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive, but Michael knew luck had nothing to do with what followed. Traumatic brain injury, they called it. The Emma who woke up 2 weeks later could breathe on her own, could open her eyes, but the light inside them had dimmed to almost nothing. She didn't know her own name. She didn't know Michael's. She didn't know she'd once captured the soul of a sunset and trapped it in oil and canvas. "She's essentially gone," the neurologist said, not unkindly. "The woman you knew may never come back. You need to prepare yourself." His father saw an opportunity. "This is tragic, son, truly. But you have to think about your future. You can ensure she gets the best care in a facility while you move forward with your life. You're 29 years old. You can't stop living because she has." That's when Michael said it. That's when he drew a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "She is my future." Richard Chen's face turned to stone. "Then you're wasting it. Don't come to me when you've destroyed everything you've worked for." Michael chose Emma. He quit the law firm to be with her full-time. The partners thought he was having a breakdown. His colleagues sent sympathetic texts that dripped with pity. His trust fund, his father made sure of that, was frozen. "Life lessons aren't free," Richard told him through his secretary. But Michael discovered something profound in that hospital room, and later in the rehabilitation center, and finally in their small apartment where he became Emma's full-time caregiver. He learned that love wasn't about what you received, it was about what you were willing to give when there was nothing left to receive. He learned that humanity at its best wasn't found in courtrooms or boardrooms, but in the quiet act of spooning applesauce into the mouth of someone who couldn't feed herself. Emma's progress was measured in microscopic victories. A squeeze of the hand. A moment of eye contact. The faintest smile when he played her favorite Nina Simone album. The doctors said these weren't signs of recovery, just reflexes. But Michael knew better. Emma was in there, fighting her way back. He started working from their apartment, doing contract legal work for nonprofits, earning enough to cover their bills. Their old nonprofit friends rallied around them, organizing fundraisers, bringing groceries, sitting with Emma so Michael could sleep. He discovered a community he never knew existed, people who understood that real wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in moments of grace. 18 months after the accident, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Michael was reading to Emma from one of her favorite books about Frida Kahlo when she spoke. Not the random syllables that sometimes emerged, but an actual word, beautiful. He nearly dropped the book. Emma, can you hear me? Her eyes, those eyes he'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, focused on his face with sudden, heartbreaking clarity. Michael, she whispered, you stayed. The tears came then, years of them held back by hope and stubbornness. Of course I stayed. You're my future, remember. Recovery wasn't a miracle, it was slow, frustrating, and incomplete. Emma would never paint the way she once did, her motor control was too compromised. She would always need support with daily tasks. But her mind came back piece by piece, and with it, her spirit. She started teaching again, adapting her methods, using her experience to help other brain injury survivors find expression through art. Michael's father didn't attend their wedding 2 years later. But the church was full anyway, packed with Emma's former students, with the families they'd helped through their nonprofit, with the nurses and therapists who'd walked alongside them. It was full of the kind of wealth that mattered. On their wedding day, Emma gave Michael a small canvas. She'd spent months on it, working through the tremors and the fatigue. It showed 2 figures standing in a storm, holding each other up, and above them, impossible and beautiful, a sunrise breaking through the darkness. This is what you gave me, she said. Not just your time or your care. You gave me proof that some people don't abandon ship when the waters get rough. You chose humanity over success, and in doing so, you taught me that I was worth choosing. That's the greatest gift anyone can give. Michael thought about his father's words, about wasted futures and foolish choices. But standing there, holding hands with the woman he loved, surrounded by a community built on kindness and selflessness, he knew the truth. He hadn't wasted his future. He'd discovered what his future was always meant to be, not a resume of accomplishments, but a legacy of love. Not an empire of things, but a life rich with meaning. Some people measure success by what they accumulate. But Michael learned that real success is measured by what you're willing to sacrifice for another human being. Emma was his future, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Together, they'd built something that mattered more than corner offices or trust funds. They'd built a life that proved the best of humanity isn't found in our achievements, but in our capacity to love unconditionally, to stay when leaving would be easier, to choose another person's well-being over our own comfort. That, Michael finally understood, was a future worth everything.